Hello everyone, Agent of Doubt here, and today I'm going to talk to you all about an epiphany that I've had after reading a couple of news articles today, because I was searching for something else, but it really puts some of the videos that I've made over the years on this channel in perspective. I don't know that I can really convey every facet of this epiphany in this video, but in the description box I'm going to leave a playlist of different videos to help give you some of the context of what's going on here. But I'll try here in this video to give you a little bit of the breakdown. So you all know, over the years, I've become a fan of protests. You know, whether or not I actually believe in what the people are protesting, I just love to go out and film political activism and put it here on my YouTube channel. Most of the time without commentary. Just me filming other people who are doing the activism. It started around 2011-ish when I started filming the Freethinkers of Colorado Springs, and then I went down to the Occupy movement and filmed that, and then filmed a whole bunch of other different activism following the protesters that I met at the Occupy movement. And beyond that, I got into politics. I became a delegate myself for political parties and filmed everything along the way and posted it all here on this YouTube channel for you guys to digest. And along the way, I came across a sort of arch nemesis in real life. I mean, I know that we have these back and forths on YouTube where we have ponage wars and people responding to each other, but this arch nemesis for me was somebody who I would meet in real life, and I had filmed doing certain things and posting it on this channel and on other channels that I have run. He is my arch nemesis, I think, because the protest groups that I felt leaned more towards the left and I was more fond of their message, whenever he would become a part of them, they would implode from drama or from him being an extremist and pushing people to the point where they would do things that would get them arrested, right? And his name is Eric Verlo, right? He's been active as a activist way before I became a fan of activism here in Colorado. I moved here to Colorado in 2010. I moved back, and I can trace through news articles this guy's protesting and criminal history all the way back to 2007-ish. But basically, he shows up to protests, and he would be there and be one of the people who was arrested, you know, in so many of these protests that alongside of him, much younger people, usually college age, were getting arrested. And I made a pattern. You know, I researched it well. I've talked about him in different YouTube videos. But for the purpose of this ramble, just know that I really don't like this guy. He is poison to any protest group. And anytime any group gets, say, more than 20 members and they have a cause that they want to support, here comes Eric Verlo to infiltrate the group and push it to extremism, where he either makes them look silly or he has a couple of them get arrested at a march. And it goes from like the Black Lives Matter movement to the Keystone Pipeline protesting, the Occupy movement, protesting the Democratic National Convention in Colorado Springs was like the first thing that I found way back in the day. That was like the initial thing where he got arrested at that. A St. Patrick's Day march that was an anti-war protest group that he was a part of was called the St. Patty's Day 7. Okay, and a nun that had been pulled from the truck that they were driving in that protest, she got scrapes across her hips and actually ended up dying from the infection. So, like, his protests have not only gotten people arrested, they've gotten a nun killed. You know, it's an over-the-top level of history of getting people arrested and hurt. Okay? And yeah, I've even wondered, like, is this guy a plant from, like, law enforcement in order to subvert every protest group, every anti-establishment group that pops up in Colorado, right? And all of this comes out in my previous videos about this person. Especially like wearing a clown nose to city council when he's representing the Occupy movement, or leading people to protest weapons in space during a space symposium that was going on at the Broadmoor in Colorado Springs. I mean, this guy goes to great lengths to make his movements look stupid and silly and get people arrested by making plans and all that. Excuse me, I got a bit of a stuffed up nose, and this ramble is going to be unedited. Alright. You don't see that in every YouTuber's videos. Anyways. So yeah, Eric Verlo, like my arch nemesis in the protest world. I like to see protests make their point. You know, I like to see groups get stuff done, not just make headlines and get arrested. You know, I like to see progress. Back in 2011, there was a march that happened whereby the Occupy Colorado Springs group decided right in the middle of their march that they were not going to follow the pre-planned path that they had. And they started going through neighborhoods, right? And as they marched around through, like, residential neighborhoods, I filmed the entire thing. Later, when there were city council meetings about revoking the permit that the occupiers had for Acacia Park in Colorado Springs, the police reported that they had charged overtime hours to police in order to watch the occupiers as they were on that particular march. And I submitted my video of the march showing that no police were present. There were no cop cars, no uniforms, no nothing, right? The entire time they were going through residential neighborhoods. I submitted it to the city council that day, way back when, right? But also, I went down to my local FBI office in Colorado Springs, and I gave them a copy of the video, and I also told them, look, this shows police corruption because they are billing for hours that they are not working. You know, they are overbilling for overtime hours. They're basically lining their pockets with putting in for hours that they're not working. And later, just less than a year later, one of the other occupiers that I knew from filming the Occupy movement, his name is Kyle Lawrence. He was arrested for burning down the city hall in Green Mountain Falls. It will also be in the long playlist in the description box below. When the FBI showed up to my house to ask me questions about Kyle Lawrence and what I knew about him and how extremists were at the Occupy group, the FBI already had some of my information on hand when I was talking to the FBI agent and the ATF agent that came to my house to question me about Kyle Lawrence. And they had in their notes that I had previously gone to the FBI to turn over my tapes, my footage of the marches that happened with no police presence, right? Fast forward to present day, okay? I still, from time to time, do kind of a vanity search on my arch nemesis, Eric Verlo, and I've been giving updates to you guys like once a year on what crazy things he's been doing in the activism world, you know, how he's running the names of good protest groups into the ground, like having a Black Lives Matter protest with mostly white people in Colorado Springs. Like, it was hard to find the token black person in his video footage, you know. All sorts of other things. Getting college kids arrested by going into a food court in a mall and doing a little drum circle with loud drums when they had no permit to do it. You know, just getting arrested for silly things. That was for the Keystone Pipeline thing. I've talked about him for the better part of this decade. Like, please do not join any group that he's a part of. Trying to warn people, you know, with a long history of what he has done to get people arrested and ruin groups. I've been trying to warn people. So, it had been a while since I had heard anything about him, and he just popped into my mind. So today I decided to Google, like, what's he been doing? And his web blog on notmytribe.com has been void of his posts for an entire year. He's been silent an entire year. And the other guy that helps him keep up that blog has been posting a little bit to it, like a little bit each month. But it used to be just a treasure trove of Eric Verlo's thoughts about different people and different movements, and he used it to be divisive in various different ways. I was probably one of the people who was most vocal about how there was bomb making material that on that website. You know, when you look at the different activist related literature that's on that website, there was bomb making material on it, like how to make bombs. And lately he had been part of the Antifa movement, you know, and had organized some people in Colorado Springs around the ideals of socialism. Which, these were probably kids that would have been really good at being active within left-leaning groups, but he took them and pushed them with his ideology into being even further than that. Antifa. Like, actually willing to commit violence. And, you know, he's been a part of so many different things. The Million Man March for Anonymous was like the last thing that I had filmed where I could tell that he was one of the people who showed up to it. But I hadn't filmed him as part of Antifa. Up till now, I hadn't seen any footage of it. But some pictures that came out in a news article from May 24th, they show that, yes, they were wearing black. Yes, they're flying the Antifa flag, calling themselves, you know, the Socialists of Colorado Springs. So there was 15 protesters in this event that happened, I guess, last March. And they were marching down the street, and they get arrested for interrupting traffic and for not dispersing when the police told them to. Right? And they ended up not serving any jail time when they were sentenced in May. But 4 people got arrested. Eric Verlo was one of them. And, you know, he was up again for another slap on the wrist for, you know, doing something extreme as a political activist. And I wish that judges would take into account his previous records of doing horrible things during protests, you know, and give him progressively harsher sentences, but it didn't happen. But something did come of this court case that is the epiphany that I've had today. And that is that it was put into evidence during their trial that 2 of the 15 people that were marching as Antifa were actually undercover law enforcement agents. And those 2 were actually allowed to give depositions, like pre-taped, so that their identities could be protected during the court case. So they were infiltrating the protest group and marching alongside them. Apparently, there is a Metro Vice unit that has been part of protest groups in the Colorado area for a while now, and they won't elaborate, like, how deep this goes. But the only other mention of Eric Verlo for the past year, and he loves to make headlines, he loves to get his name in print. The only other mention of him is him showing up to the court case of a person who believes in the sovereignty movement, right? And when I look at this, this guy Bruce Doucette that Eric Verlo showed up to the court case for, he's not the kind of person that Eric Verlo would ever usually associate with, because the sovereignty movement is more like a right-leaning thing, instead of a left-leaning thing. Now, I guess both are, when you take the Antifa, like extreme left, and the sovereignty movement extreme right people, both are kind of anti-authoritarian, close to anarchistic, right? So I guess there's a connection there, but really, when I read this news article in the Westward about Bruce Doucette, this guy that Eric Verlo just happened to show up in his court case, there was another connection there. In that Bruce Doucette had his sovereignty movement infiltrated by undercover agents who recorded him. And so Bruce Doucette's court case was about him declaring himself a judge and then sending letters to different people, like political people, like the mayor, different judges and stuff, sending them subpoenas and liens and stuff. And basically acting like he himself is a judge without having been elected to be a judge or appointed. He just declared himself a judge. And it's kind of like the same way that the sovereignty people declare themselves their own personal nation, so they're not subject to the laws of America because they are their own sovereigns, right? So they were calling this paper terrorism, in that they were trying to derail government by being pests, basically. And the undercover person who was infiltrating this sovereignty movement, he recorded Doucette saying that they were enjoying the fact that they might be able to ruin the credit history of those people that they were sending fake liens to as judges, as like self-appointed judges, right? And so that was part of the basis of the case against him, was that they were actually not just pulling pranks, they were actually trying to affect these government officials that they were pestering. So the key here is Eric Verlo shows up to this guy's court case, this guy that doesn't stand for anything that Eric Verlo usually comes out and marches for. And the link between Eric Verlo's case and his case is that there were undercover agents involved. And I thought back to way back to late 2011, 2012, when I filmed that entire march going through residential areas, and then I saw, in the proceedings at City Council about the removal of the permit that Occupy Colorado Springs had for using the park, how they had those hours and hours of time billed by the police for work that didn't look like it was being done. And I have to conclude that if they weren't in uniform and they weren't in cars, maybe they were the protesters. Maybe they were marching alongside everyone else. And what I have to say about that is, that doesn't do a lot of good as far as protecting the public from a march the size of a giant mob going through residential areas if those police officers are unwilling to stop violence from happening for fear of losing their cover. You know? All they're doing is collecting evidence. You know, maybe wearing a camera or wearing a wire or something. But they're not going to let their cover be blown and stop anything, you know, seriously wrong from happening. So, my point that I was making about, you know, they're billing all of these hours saying that they're dangerous people, and yet there's nobody doing these jobs protecting people, like by being there as a presence. They're basically invisible cops. I think part of my point still stands years later, that no good was being done by all of those hours that were billed. If they were undercover cops that had pretended to be homeless the whole time, because I pretty much knew all of the people that were in the march that I filmed way back when. If they were undercover cops, it's not like they were doing anything productive, because I would rather have a uniformed cop walking along, making sure that people, you know, were acting properly, than a cop that is basically doing something like entrapment, you know, where they're actually encouraging people to do things that are a little bit more extreme in order to collect the evidence and then arrest them later. You know, I want to see things stopped in the moment, you know. Make sure that people are acting like proper citizens in the moment. Don't encourage them to do horrible things and then arrest them later. That's just fucking stupid. The reason why I think cops should be around is, you know, to proactively prevent crime by just having their presence there, not just like make people more extreme, you know, and try to get people for the big chicken dinner, and not just like hand out tickets, but actually make arrests for violence and property destruction and stuff like that. No, if tickets and just fucking being visible will keep people being courteous and good citizens, that's what I want. Anyways, links in the description box for a lot of backstory and a lot of context. But basically, yeah, along with my arch nemesis, Eric Verlo, infiltrating protest groups and destroying them from within just by being fucking crazy douchebag, we've got law enforcement. And I've heard stories about this for a long time. I mean, they spread among Facebook groups of occupiers like the whole time that the Occupy movement was big. But now I'm seeing it. You know, and in evidence submitted by police to a court case, they're admitting it. Yes, they had operatives that went undercover as Antifa. And now I'm seeing the silencing effect that it's had on Eric Verlo, because he hasn't posted anything in a year. Not that I really liked anything that he had to say on his blog, but yeah, it is kind of silencing. And that's it for this ramble.